Guys, I welcome you all to the weekly answer writing series. So today I've picked up a very interesting topic, and this is a question from 2020 and paper 2. So the topic is debates on the Aryan invasion. Okay, so now this topic is basically about whether the Aryans invaded India and migrated and invaded India and won over the indigenous population, right? So we know shortly after the Indus Valley civilization, one of the causes of decline of Indus Valley civilization is believed to be the Aryan invasion, and this was in news, and this is in news because of the fact that many scholars, researchers, whether they are the linguistic anthropologist, archaeological anthropologist, or biological geneticists, right? They all have at some point in time refuted the Aryan invasion. And what is the whole theory? What is the nationalistic idea about the Aryan invasion? And all of that is largely the debates that surround the Aryan invasion. So this topic was very interesting, and this has come in a 10 marker. So I assume that this can come in a 15 marker also, because or a 20 marker also, because of the fact कि जैसे I told you कि इसमें linguistic anthropology has a role, ठीक है, what the genetics are saying about it, what archaeological evidences are saying about it. So it is so intricately related to the subject of anthropology that this debate can be asked, and it might be asked in more marks, or उसमें you might be asked to explain a lot more, right? So इसमें तो ये 10 marker में आता है, and this too was a compulsory question, so that means you had to write something, right? But 10 marker में you can just have a overview of it and just can leave it also, but not in the 20 marker. So the debate or the discussion would be longer for today, because a lot of information I've gathered from different sources, and I'm sure that you will be you will know a lot more, right? So stay tuned and do not please like, share and subscribe if you like the content, right? So this is the Aryan invasion, and today mostly the nationalistics and many other theories refute the Aryan invasion per se, to India and the Indian subcontinent. So there have been doubts and contradictions that persist within the historical topography of India about the Aryans. What is Aryan? How they came, we are going to study everything. But the focus has been on solving the fact whether Aryans invaded India or not, and are they truly the invaders. So basically, I'll take you back to the Indus Valley civilization, and one of the causes of decline of Indus Valley civilization was this picture summarizes everything. So this foreign invasion theory जो थी ना, this was basically given by, you can say, Max Muller was the biggest name in this, Max Muller. But apart from Max Muller, the associates of this theory were Piggott, Gordon, Wheeler. They believed that some kind of foreign invasion happened. And why do they say about this? Abhi, let's not talk about Max Muller here, because Max Muller we are going to study in detail. Let's talk about the other people and how did they conclude that some foreign invasion happened, because there was you can say reinforcement of fortification. That means they saw that there were fortified walls, and you also know that when any fortification happens, uska kya matlab hai? You're trying to protect your territory, right? When Britishers used to do fortify their killas and all of that, so why would they do it? They do it because they wanted to protect themselves from the outer forces. So that is one indication that maybe there was some they were scared of some outer invasion. पहला बात ये होगी. Then Rigveda mentions about similar invasions, of in the associated cities. So कुछ ऋग्वेदिक उसमें mentions है, So second thing is this. Then there were certain in Mohenjo-daro there were some skeletal remains that were found of a violent massacre. ठीक है, so कुछ violent massacre के हमको remains we have found, and they are roughly around the time of, you can say, 2500 to 1800 BC or 1500 BC, you can say. इस time के वो violent remains है, which shows that maybe there was a certain kind of a fight that happened between some peoples. ठीक है, so this is what others has to say. But the real debate of the Aryan debate that we are doing is, it takes us back to the German Indologist Max Muller. Now, what is this German Indologist is saying basically? He popularized that Aryan invasion theory. He gave his theory in 1853. ठीक है? So now, according to this Aryan invasion theory, he propagated that the Westerners invaded the North India and conquered them. ठीक है? So basically, who were Aryans? Aryans were nomads. ठीक है? They were the people who were light skinned. ठीक है? And they were known as Aryans, and they supposedly descended from some unknown land. ठीक है? Now what is that unknown land? We'll talk about that also. Mostly from the steppe region, we'll talk about that, but they came from the unknown land around 1500 BC. These invaders destroyed an earlier civilization of the people who lived in the Indus Valley, and then imposed upon them their culture, which is the Vedic culture, and their language, Sanskrit. Now just look at this, because this is flawed to many points. This Max Muller's idea of is flawed, because he said that their culture Vedas, but their cultures Vedas, and their language Sanskrit. Okay, so now Aryans did follow the culture of Vedas and language Sanskrit, but did they bring it from outside? This seems a little questionable, right? So this was the thing. This is the first thing. These Indus Valley people were supposed to be Dravidians. So now, according to Max Muller, the people of IVC were supposed to be Dravidians. Now there have been certain claims of some truth in this, okay, because कुछ studies ने कुछ conclude किया है that they might be from the Dravidian, because कुछ script जो है that is matching apparently to the script of Dravidians. ठीक है, so ठीक है, अभी तक यहाँ तक हम समझ गए. For thousands of years, the Hindus have looked upon the Ved as the fountainhead of our knowledge, culture, heritage, and our existence. So everything, whatever we have, we root it back to the Vedas, right? The Vedic culture. So saying that this is something which is not ours and it was brought by some nomads, okay, the word is nomads, who did not have any, you can say, even no knowledge of agriculture, who were wandering from place to place, they brought it, is a little questionable thing. Okay? So even Westerners and Far Eastern travelers who have documented their experiences during their prolonged stay in India have testified the importance of Vedic literature and its indigenous origin. That means in Europeans को तो छोड़ ही दो, because they never would do anything without a bias, and that is अभी तक हम थोड़ा बहुत ये चीज़ तो समझ ही गए हैं, because whatever they do, ठीक है, they have their own vested interest attached to it, right? So and the culture that we were following, whether it was the Vedic culture or the language that we had, it never was questioned based कि उसका origin इंडिया है, इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट है या नहीं है. नाउ दे आर कमिंग विद अ न्यू थ्योरी ओनली, दैट सेइंग दैट the culture that we were following, that might have been brought by somebody else. So nowhere in any ancient Indian scripture or epics in Purans is there any mention of Aryan invasion or invasion of a race. So अगर हम अपने scriptures में वापस जाएं, if we go back to the scriptures which are very old and not only from the time of Vedic period, ठीक है, Vedic period में they might have आप बोल सकते हैं उनको compile किया गया होगा, right? But ऐसा नहीं था कि they were written then and there, right? So even if we go back to the scriptures, there is no mention of any Aryan invasion. But as I say, this thing, the thing that we are studying today, is not white, black and white. Okay, so it is, if this is a pole and this is the white end of the pole and this is the black end of the pole, the the layers are here. That means there can be no clear cut answer to this Aryan debate. अगर होता तो अभी तक हम solve कर चुके होते. ठीक है, so that is why we are unraveling all the possible you can say the possibilities of it. ठीक है, so just try and understand, enjoy it, and it will give you enough fodder for you to write both in pro as well as con of the theory. So continuing our Max Muller का debate, ठीक है, so what happens is later Muller could not support his theory because उसने बहुत ही ज़्यादा extreme stance, he took a very extreme stance, so he could not support, and then he recanted that Aryans meant only a linguistic family and never applied to a race. So बाद में he tried to correct it and he said okay, maybe Aryan, the word Aryan or Aryans, ठीक है, it was not related to a race because उससे पहले he had said that tawny white skin, ठीक है, and they had their own Vedic culture and all of that. So he kind of utilized the thing to talk about a race which was more superior. And why was it superior, what were the racial angle to it, वो हम समझेंगे, don't worry. But when he corrected, when he refuted this all, till that time the damage was already done, because we saw what the German Holocaust that the Hitler did, ठीक है ना, believing that there was a Nordic Aryan or there were German race which was the pure race, right? They were the pure Aryanic race with blue-eyed Nordic Germans. They called themselves blue-eyed Nordic Germans. That means they were very pure and they were superior and they had the white man's burden. That means everybody else is inferior to them and they had to conquer the world, and they were meant to be only slaves and all of those racial ideas. ठीक है, so तब तक ये racial seed was sown and we saw that happening in the extermination, or you can say the Holocaust that was done in Germany, right? So अभी तक यहाँ तक मैक्स मुलर डिबेट के बारे में हमने बात किया. Now if you go back to the Sanskrit literature, ठीक है, the original meaning of the word Aryan is not of a racial thing. Okay, so in Sanskrit literature the term Arya denoted a racial people, ठीक है, but the real meaning of the word is gentleman, good natured, righteous person, noble man. ठीक है, so this was not like some racial category, but this was more to do denoted. इसमें not कर लेना यार, ठीक है, not कर लेना. Then it means कि the word that is Arya meant somebody who is noble, who is good hearted, who is a good human being. So इसके लिए if you have to see an example of it, you can see the how Ramayana describes Ram. So Ram is described as an Arya, which means that he cared for the equality of all and was dear to everyone. ठीक है, so Arya कोई it was not a caste, ठीक है, it was not a race, ठीक है, it was not an ethnicity, it was something जैसे हम आज के टाइम पे मिस्टर बोलते हैं, श्री बोलते हैं, like that, somebody who is a noble person, who does for a good cause, ठीक है, who is a righteous person. ठीक है, so this was the original meaning of the word Arya or Aryan. Okay, and excavations at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, it is in the excavation. Okay, this is not here, इसको just cut कर दो. This is what massacre and all of that we have talked about this. ठीक है ना, तो जो massacre हुआ है, it goes कि some लड़ाई must have happened, वो बात हमने कर ली है. ठीक है, so अभी हम मैक्स मुलर का थॉट समझ गए, हमने फॉरेन इन्वेजन थ्योरी भी समझ ली. ठीक है, we understood in Sanskrit literature what is the meaning of Aryan. That means अभी तक there is a very you can say divided view of what is Aryan and whether the invasion happened or not. Now there is a third angle to it also, which is the Hindu nationalistic angle. So we talked about what Max Muller suggested, that Aryan speaking population introduced Sanskritic language and culture to ancient India. That means the Vedic literature, according to them, and Sanskrit both do not have Indian origin, according to Max Muller. Then Dayanand Saraswati, the founder of Arya Samaj, argued that Aryans came to this country from Tibet shortly after the dawn of the creation. That means ये मान रहे हैं कि Aryans came from outside. ठीक है? They came from Tibet. Similarly, Bal Gangadhar Tilak says the origination of Aryans must have been somewhere in the Arctic Circle. ठीक है? Then similarly, there are different people who believe Swami Vivekananda is there. He believes it to be in, Aryans came from India, and that ancient India included Afghanistan. So now he is saying that Aryans were from India. So there is a divided pole here. Okay? Some people are saying they have come from outside, and some people are saying that they were from India. Okay, so Aurobindo believed that Dravidian languages were closely related to Sanskrit. Now you can see what are the layers of this that I was talking about. Okay? Now let's move forward. Now how was this Max Muller ka theory was used by others? So abhi Max Muller's theory is based on two things. Language first, that means language जो है, ठीक है? Now why language? Because this language, the Sanskrit language that we are talking about, has certain similarities or resemblance with the other Indo-European languages. So the other Indo-European languages include the French, Spanish, Greek, ठीक है, German, ठीक है? So these languages also have similarity in words, in word formation to the Sanskrit. ठीक है? So on the basis of this, he said maybe Indo-Europeans, ठीक है, a branch of it who spoke Sanskrit came towards Indian subcontinent. ठीक है? And they originally in India, they were the people who were Dravidians. They were killed by, or either they were made slaves of the Aryan, and that full theory. ठीक है? So how did now Britishers utilize this theory? ठीक है? Britishers utilize this theory to explain their own invasion to India. ठीक है? The so-called exploitation that they did of Indians for so many years. ठीक है? It gave them a relief. It gave them a reason. Now we'll see what was that reason. The Aryan theory was implemented by the Britishers during the colonial rule. They popularized this theory. Okay, why? Now let's see. With the production of this theory, the Britishers wanted to justify and establish their rule in India. How? Thereby, how did they do it? They said that white-skinned people were responsible and they have the duty of suppressing the dark-skinned people. And this is not happening for the first time according to them, because the Aryan invasion was very old, right? It dates back to before the birth of Christ. ठीक है? So that means this is the fate of Indians, this is the fate of Indian subcontinent people, that they will always be subjugated or suppressed by a white population. ठीक है? And therefore they tried to explain their own self. ठीक है? So evidences have been collected to justify the theory of Britishers also. ठीक है? So उन्होंने भी कुछ अपने evidences collect किए. They were scientific, not scientific, अलग बात है. But they popularized the Aryan invasion theory in those times a lot. ठीक है? So white-skinned people, that is the Britishers, are justified in colonizing and brutally treating the dark-skinned people, because this is the fate of Indians. This has happened because this is not the first and foremost evidence. ठीक है? This has happened in the times of Aryan invasion. So the system of caste based, ठीक है, तो and then they went on to explain it with the help of a caste segregation. How? The caste segregation has also been from the time of Aryans, because Aryan invasion में क्या बोला मैंने आपको? I told that if Aryan invasion theory was right, So according to that, Dravidians were the original inhabitants of the region of India. ठीक है? When the Aryan came, they fought, they won, they made Dravidians or the original inhabitants the slaves, जिनको हम दास्यूज भी पढ़ते हैं, जो हमने ऋग्वेद में देखा है. The term दास्यूज has been mentioned there. These are nobody else but the Dravidian people. So this is how this twofold classification in the older or the Rigvedic era became fourfold classification or the Chaturvर्ण system in the later times. So ऐसे करके उन्होंने कास्ट से भी इसको जोड़ दिया. ठीक है? Okay. Now the European language that is mostly associated with Sanskrit is the Latin or Greek. So Latin, Greek languages ये बहुत ज़्यादा संस्कृत से resemble करती हैं. ठीक है? And they were and these people, the Aryans or the Britishers, they were responsible for civilizing the uncouth Dravidians. That means पूरा वो जो racial supremacy and वो almost सारे flawed concepts they utilized for their own convenience and for exploitation of the Indians. ठीक है? So now this was Max Muller, what he said, what was the Aryan debate, and now comes the alternative debates and the new age debates. So इसमें एक अब आपको थोड़ा थोड़ा समझ आ गया है कि मैक्स मुलर क्या बोल रहे थे. How the Britishers have utilized the theory. What is the nationalistic idea? Nationalism, maybe they were divided whether in nationalism mostly जैसे बाल गंगाधर तिलक हो गए, they have all agreed to the fact कि maybe Aryans बाहर से आए थे. ठीक है? Then there is one section who said कि no, they are the indigenous people and they were from India. So now this is the out of India theory that we are talking about. So this indigenous Aryanism, also known as the indigenous Aryan theory and out of India theory, is the conviction that Aryans are indigenous to the Indian subcontinent and that the Indo-European languages radiated out from the homeland to the present location. That means जो हमने यहाँ पे ये picture देखा, it has not happened this way. ठीक है? It has not happened this way, but it has happened the other way. That means from here it radiated out like this. Apart from here ऐसे radiate होने के बजाय it radiated out from the Indian subcontinent. And why do they believe so? They believe because you can say this is a belief because this is a very religio nationalistic belief. Okay, and they believe it because of the you can say they believe that the language of Sanskrit is the only language which is the oldest in the Indo-European group. So जब हम languages को compile करते हैं, when we are talking about Sanskrit being a part of Indo-European languages much like the other ones like Greek, Latin, ठीक है ना, and Sanskrit being one of them. So they say that Sanskrit is the oldest one. So how can Sanskrit come out of the Indo-European languages का group? ठीक है? When Sanskrit is the oldest one. So they consider the Pontic Caspian steppe to be an area of origin of Indo-European languages. Now I told you when we were talking about कि कहाँ से आए होंगे वो Aryans, so they have come from they are believed to have come from Pontic Caspian steppe, but they say that no, the out of India theory कहती है in the 19th century Indo-European studies the language of Rigved was the most archaic, ठीक है, known to the scholars. Indeed the only records of Indo-European that could reasonably be claimed to the Bronze Age. That means the languages among the Indo-European सबसे पुरानी संस्कृत है. So how can you say somebody from outside came who brought this language? जबकि हमारी जो संस्कृत लैंग्वेज है दैट इज़ द ओल्डेस्ट एंड इट वाज ओरिजिनेटेड, हम मानते हैं कि संस्कृत ओरिजिनेट हुई है इंडियन सबकॉन्टिनेंट में. सो हाउ कैन यू से दैट समबडी फ्रॉम आउटसाइड ब्रॉट इट? ठीक है. सो द प्राइमेसी ऑफ संस्कृत inspired scholars like this person Frederick to assume that the locus of proto-Indian European homeland has been India, with other dialects spread to the west by historical migration. So this theory supports the opposite view that they might have evolved in India, and from India they must have moved out. But let me tell you, like the Max Muller ka theory, much like other theories, this theory is also largely wrong, ठीक है, और false, ठीक है, because इसमें भी there is too much of extremism, ठीक है, as we talk, because हमने जब when we were talking about race वाला chapter, when we were studying the race chapter in paper 1, we understood that there are no pure races, and there have been historical migrations ever since the African subcontinent, which is known as the cradle of civilization, where the human ancestors must have born, ठीक है, they have been moving since that time, ठीक है, to the Indian subcontinent, to the European subcontinent, and there have been mixing not only among different human sapient population, but other groups, for example the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, ठीक है. So saying that something is pure in some part of the world, preserved after so much of racial mixing, ठीक है, is not possible. So definitely when we talk about the Indian subcontinent people, ठीक है, there is traits of Aryans in them, ठीक है, but and that you can't refute. There are certain DNA that suggests that we have certain Aryan reminiscents in us, ठीक है. So you can't say on that, but yes, definitely हम एक चीज़ बोल सकते हैं कि the idea of Aryan or the Aryan's idea is nothing to do with a race, but it is mostly you can say a linguistic group. ये एक linguistic group हो सकता है. They were not a racial classification, ठीक है, and you should not use it for a racial superiority का concept, ठीक है ना. So this theory out of India theory is also mostly refuted, not very accurate. So now what geneticist has to say. So this is a more of a, you can say, contemporary analysis of what happened, where Aryan invasion theory has been debunked today. People believe that it's a hoax, and Britishers used it to their own advantage just to exploit us, which can be partially true, because Aryan invasion happened, ऐसा कुछ तो मतलब not supported very well today, apart from some massacre evidences have been found from Mohenjo-daro. इसके अलावा हमारे पास कुछ conclusive नहीं है to say that कुछ fight must have happened and they must have destroyed the indigenous population. So ऐसा नहीं है. But yes, as this we do agree that some some migration happened. That means there is a mixing of population that has happened. Mixing of population has happened. Invasion, there's a doubt. Invasion we don't agree. Migration we agree. Okay, mostly. So about 17.5% of the Indian male lineage have been found to belong to a haplogroup R1a. Now what is this? We'll talk about this. So if we talk about the Y chromosome, ठीक है, if this is the Y chromosome, on a Y chromosome there's a locus or a gene which is the R1a, ठीक है. This identifies the line of descent, ठीक है, which and this R1a is a gene that is spread across Central Asia, Europe, South Asia, ठीक है. Pontic Caspian steppe is seen as the region from where R1a spread both west and east, splitting into different sub branches along the way. तो अभी उसने क्या बोला? This is a gene which is present in European population, Central Asian population and South Asian population. The origin of this gene can be the Pontic Caspian steppes. That means वो Caspian area ही था where this gene originated. This has now migrated to different areas, which is the Europe, the Central Asia and the South Asia. 3 years ago, a team of 32 scientists led a massive study of distribution and seeing where this R1a gene is present. तो उन्होंने मैप किया, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किया. they studied, like around 16 to 244 male subjects from itne populations, 126 populations across Eurasia. So different people they studied. And what conclusion did they bring? They found that this R1A has two सब haplogroups. Obviously अब ये जो R1A है ये आगे further divide हो गया है, ठीक है. One group or category of R1A is found in the Europe and the other one in the Central या South Asia, ठीक है. 96% of the R1A in Europe belongs to the same group. That means इसमें कोई subdivision नहीं है. But the Central South Asian वाले में there is a lot of subdivisions, ठीक है. 98.4% of the lineages belong to the subgroups Z93. So जो South Asia या Central Asia में मिलता है ना R1A का subgroup, that is Z93. So Z93 is the variant which is found in the Indian subcontinent, ठीक है. So the two groups diverged from each other only about 5800 years ago. अगर हम इस information के साथ जाएं, so this roughly would correspond to the time of the IVC, okay, because अभी हम 21st century में हैं, ठीक है. मतलब 2000 years इसको minus कर लो and पीछे 3800 years को minus करना पड़ेगा. That means roughly we'll go back to 3000 BCE where our Indus Valley civilization started. So according to this brings us to the same thing again, which is that time the European population separated from the now आज की Central या South Asian subgroup of the R1A, ठीक है ना. So this research shows that within this Z93 in India there is a further splintering into multiple branches. So obviously India में इसके बहुत सारे सब branches हमको मिलते हैं. उसके बाद एक और study हुई है by Moorjani's, ठीक है. She estimated that Dalits from Tamil Nadu have 40% ANI and remainder presumably ASI. Now what is ANI ASI मैं यहाँ लिख देती हूँ. I'll just write it here. ANI is ancestral North Indian population and this is ancestral South Indian population, because North Indian is believed to be from outside origin and South Indian थोड़ा Dravidian वाला effect आ जाएगा, ठीक है. Then Pathans are North Indians, ancestral North Indians is 70%. Kashmiri Pandits are also ancestral North Indians. Brahmin Kshatriyas from UP are 55% or 60% ancestral North Indians, and you can see the data also for others also. So this is exactly the pattern we have seen, and it is believed that Indians are a mix of several genetic streams. That means you can't say that India में कुछ भी there is indigenous, okay. Definitely the mixing from different parts has happened, and this when we'll study the Risley's racial classification and Guha's racial classification in the second chapter, you will see that almost all the racial classifications that are there mostly, ठीक है ना, they are present in India, ठीक है. Whether it is the Dravidian, Mongoloid, Caucasian, Indo-European, ठीक है, Scythian, ठीक है. There are different racial categories that you can find in the Indian population, almost many of them from the world, ठीक है. So thereby saying that there is no Aryan invasion that Aryan migration that happened to the Indian subcontinent would be definitely wrong. However, conclusive evidence is not there whether Aryan invasion क्या है, when they defeated the IBC and then brought their culture along with that. ये theory थोड़ी flawed है, but migration definitely accepted है, and today the geneticists are also saying that India is a melting pot of races and Indians are a mix of several genetic streams, ठीक है. Particularly the ANI and ASI who have been living in the Indian subcontinent from the Stone Age, ठीक है. So that means there is not the time कि only after the IVC the invasion happened and then the mixing got happened. This has been, as I told you, historically, not only from the time, but the time from out of Africa, the evolution started to happen. Obviously Indian subcontinent उससे कोई बचा हुआ थोड़ी था. Indian subcontinent में भी people were coming Neolithic times में, ठीक है, फिर Paleolithic times में, Megalithic times में, there were people who were coming, they were living there, and that is how the racial mixing has always happened. Aryan invasion theory is debunked now. थोड़ा सा ब्रिटिशर्स का इसमें अपना वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट था, ठीक है. वी सॉ व्हाट इट डिड, इसमें थोड़ा रेशियल एंगल था, व्हाट इट डिड टू द जर्मन्स, एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट वी हैव अंडरस्टूड. सो आई होप गाइज आई हैव गिवन यू अ लॉट ऑफ fodder for this. So what you can do is, now in this 10 marker question, you can just touch upon the ideas of what the geneticist has to say, what is the out of India theory or indigenous Aryan invasion, what is the thoughts of Max Muller, what was the British interest. You can just write it in two language, sentences, and just move to the next part. So I hope you guys liked the lecture, guys. If you did, please like, share and subscribe. I will bring good content for you, and I'm trying my level best to bring the topics that are not in the syllabus, because the reason for starting this series is also understanding and learning newer topics which are not mentioned in the syllabus per se. So I hope you liked it, and if you did, guys, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much.